Oh, this is gonna be fun. Let's play that new intro. In the history of SpinMove iRacing Network, we have seen quite a bit come across this channel. We have done weekly sports shows for motorsport, particularly NASCAR. We have seen that materialize through the show Drafting Buddies years ago with myself and David. We have also seen commentating shows on different iRacing leagues that David and myself, Zach, has commentated on. That took shape way back when, a few years ago, and is now sort of morphed into the High Octane podcast, a show here on the channel that we get to do live on Thursday nights with Ricky Gonzalez. And we've also pondered things like AI racing leagues and things like that. What can we do to commentate and make SpinMove iRacing Network sort of an umbrella where a lot of different things happen here on the channel? Well, I'm really excited to share with you today our new show. The new show that is going to grace this platform is called FasTrack Talk. And yes, my name is Zach Woods, and I will be the host of this NASCAR weekly show in which I'll give my opinion about motorsport. I've been sitting on a show like this for about 2 years, pondering over how and where I can go and talk about the sport that I love, and the home for it's been sitting right here in front of me this whole time. I've really missed talking about NASCAR weekly online, and we've had a great run with Drafting Buddies, and maybe as the future goes along, we can get David in on this show, but ultimately, I want to scratch the itch right now, and this is where FasTrack Talk is born. A weekly show in which I'll be able to talk to you about a whole bunch of different NASCAR news as it comes along and hopefully gauge your opinion about it. There's a lot of places like this online, and I want to thank you for tuning in for today. Something new for us will be, bam, a ticker on the bottom of the screen telling us, well, what we're going to do today. And I'm so excited to go through some of these topics with you and ask your opinion about what's going on in the sport that I assume you like because, well, you're here. So let's start talking when it comes to everything NASCAR. Maybe not everything. There's a lot that happened in the off season, and I don't have enough time in one video to go through it all. I just want to tackle the most relevant stuff, the most recent stuff with you today, and we'll talk about the rest of the things in terms of driver silly season as it comes along. First topic of the day will be the NASCAR playoff format changes, which there are none. There are none to report. An unfortunate development when it comes to this, simply because, man, the fans want it so bad, and the sport, I think, is coming to grips with knowing that this experiment with the playoffs is, as it is right now, not suitable for crowning a champion in motorsport. Can you imagine way back in the day when Trevor Bayne, the Cinderella story, wins the Daytona 500? He's locked into the playoffs and he does nothing throughout the entire year, and somehow, some way, he makes it into the Final Four without winning another race, and he gets lucky on the last race of the season, finishes ahead of the 3 guys that he's racing against, and he's champion. This isn't a way to crown a champion. Yes, the playoffs create a space for the Cinderella story to happen. But in motorsport, the Cinderella story is more identifiable on a race-to-race basis. We don't want Cinderella stories when it comes to a champion in motorsport. When it comes to football and things like that, ball and stick sports, sure, there can be room for a feel-good story. They earn their way into the playoffs, they win a weak division, they go on a little bit of a run. That's great. I think there's a time and place for that. But when it comes to NASCAR or any form of motorsport, the Cinderella story is best isolated on a race-to-race basis, not on a basis of crowning a champion. I think we as fans, especially the older fans of NASCAR, clamor for a deserving champion. And that's something that the sport has really struggled with under the playoff format. We're in an era now where, as you can look to last year, we have a champion that wasn't deserving. In fact, Joey Logano is statistically the least deserving NASCAR champion in terms of, well, a bunch of metrics when it comes to average driving order, average finish. This guy is not a champion, and yet we're going to see promos all over all the different companies that NASCAR now broadcasts their champion, Joey Logano. And that's really sad. I think this championship format needs to be changed, and I'm very thankful for NASCAR for at least looking into possible changes for the 2026 season. So, just as I ask for you over what your dream scenario might be for a championship, I'm going to give you mine. First things first, we don't live in a fantasy land, and as much as I would love it to, I'd love to go back to a place where we crown a champion based on an entire year's worth of work. That's never happening again. We are in the era of the playoffs. As soon as the chase got implemented, it's very well known we're never going back to what the Winston Cup Series point standings were. We are locked into this playoff style format. So let's make the best of it. Let's try to do the best we can with what we got. And I think my solution is this. You shrink the playoff field down to 12 drivers. This puts a higher emphasis on the whole win and you're in thing that we're not getting rid of, unfortunately. And it's going to create a bit of, well, a logjam. Seems like every year with this 16-driver playoff, we're fighting over 2 or 3 spots at the bottom of the rung for guys to point their way in. And if you shrink the field even more so and put the emphasis on winning, the tiebreaker can actually go to points. Say Harrison Burton wins at Daytona. Well, if the field is already logjammed with winners, his season of work doesn't allow him into the playoffs. It's not a guarantee. It's just a tiebreaker. And if there's 11 winners and he's the 11th guy, sure, he's in. 12th guy comes along, yeah, sure, he's in. 13th guy comes along, and Harrison Burton's still sitting at 35th in total driver points. He's the first guy out. I think that this could add a lot of drama when it comes to establishing your playoff field, and it also brings legitimacy back to the point system itself. You shorten up the field, it's a bit of a loophole, and we make points matter again. Wins matter in order to get into the playoffs, and more than likely we'll probably fill up that board, or at least get very close to it, and then default to driver points as they come. That's probably the best compromise you're going to get when establishing a playoff field, but you're not going to get that with 16 drivers. It's got to be 12, back to where it used to be. Now, what do we do with the final stage of the season? Right now in NASCAR, we have one race to rule them all, and it's still at Phoenix Raceway, so congratulations to Ryan Blaney for winning this year's NASCAR championship. If he gets there, they're probably going to win it. It's not going to be Joey Logano because, well, it's an odd year this year, and he doesn't win championships on odd years. He's got the every other thing down really, really good. And I feel like this is going to be a chance in where we're going to be able to articulate well throughout the season what the best kind of format we want in order to crown the most deserving NASCAR champion. We're not going to get rid of the Final Four thing. I don't think that's going away. But hear me out. I think a great compromise for the playoff could be establishing a 4-race final leg of the regular season. And this is how I would like for it to play out. How many track types does NASCAR have? Road courses, short tracks, intermediates, and super speedways. On this last leg of the season, I would like each one of those track types to be represented in a rotational Final Four bout. And these 4 drivers duke it out for 4 races on every track type that NASCAR has to offer. Whoever's the best out of the 4 wins. It's not a win and you're the champion kind of deal. It's straight up points. and these drivers will have to be tested on every track discipline that NASCAR offers all throughout the year. I think this format would establish a better champion, and I think this format would please a lot of those drivers that look at it and go, well, it's not perfect, but at least he had 4 races to prove himself across many different track types, all the different track types in fact, and, well, I'll take it. He'll be the champion. This is probably the best middle ground we're going to get. And NASCAR has announced that throughout this year, they're going to have different media members and OEM partners and owners and drivers come in and evaluate a potential change for the 2026 season. If I had my opinion, that'd be the one I would share. I want to hear from you down in the comments what your best playoff format is like. If I had my choice, we go back to the full season points like we had during the Winston Cup Series days, but that's long gone. Let's be realistic and try to iron this problem out and try to get a solution that works well for everyone. The next topic of conversation is going to be found with Legacy Motor Club. Legacy Motor Club this season is going to look a little different. Jimmy Johnson has went from a partial owner, a minority owner in the club, literally, to now a majority owner of Legacy Motor Club. Richard Petty's status in this club will more likely just be an ambassador role. I think this is it for Petty Motorsports. They're gone. I think Jimmy Johnson's going to take this into a totally new direction. Right now, they're a Toyota team, and they were scrutinized throughout the year to not link up with a Joe Gibbs Racing of sorts and sort of feed off of their system. I think Jimmy knows that comes at a cost, so he wants to build out his own playbook. But now, with Johnson as the head of Legacy Motor Club, this is going to, well, change things quite a bit. This shift comes as Nighthead Capital Management, yes, acquires a significant stake in this team. There's going to be new leadership from the top, and we're going to see Johnson take control of what he wants to see out of this team. It wouldn't surprise me at all in 2026, Legacy Motor Club switches from Toyota back to a Chevy team. This is simply because Jimmy Johnson has been a Chevy guy, and he's raced as a Chevy for nearly his entire career, and he's probably more familiar with working with that OEM. Not saying he doesn't have a very strong relationship with Toyota. He very well might, but his decisions throughout these last 2 years, man, I'm struggling with this new setup. I'm doinking my ring off of my stand here. I'm hitting my mic. I'm talking with my hands. His relationship with Toyota could very well be frayed, simply because he's not falling in line like other new Toyota teams. The system's very clear. JGR is the top dog, and you got to file in under them in order to get anywhere in this sport with Toyota. He's not doing that. He's decided he wants to go his own way, pave his own road, and not pay the boss, Joe Gibbs, any allegiance at all. That's why Legacy Motors Club has struggled so much. They've been at the bottom of the rung for resources because they are the ones that are building out their own playbook. I think he gets more leeway with Chevy, and I think Chevy would love to have old 7-time back in the stable. What do you think about Legacy Motor Club and this drastic change for this upcoming season? Jimmy Johnson taking the helm officially at his team, Legacy Motor Club. Now let's transition to racing. This is going to be something I'm really excited for. So the Cookout Clash is coming to Bowman Gray, and we're going to see a 39-car field try to squeeze into 33 slots here for the main event at Bowman Gray. It's going to be scheduled for Sunday at 8 o'clock, and it's going to be broadcasted on Fox, and NASCAR returns finally to Bowman Gray, the madhouse, where anything and everything can happen. Fans are really skeptical of the Clash this season simply because, well, it's still not Daytona. We've tried the experiment. We've went out west. We did the LA Coliseum, and we're basically taking the track out of the Coliseum and doing the same exact thing over at Bowman Gray. I agree. I think that this is going to be a bumper car fest, and I really feel that this is going to be one of those deals where drivers just don't really care. In my opinion, the Clash used to mean something. It used to mean that the pole winners of the previous year were locked into the Clash. And I thought that back in the day, the drivers really prided themselves in winning poles. You'd see in old interviews about how drivers were excited after they got the pole award. Why? Because they got to race in the Clash for the next year. In an era where now everybody's included and you gotta race your way in, it just provides chaos, especially on these kinds of racetracks where in the next gen car, the bump and run doesn't exist. You just gotta dump the guy in order to move out in front of him. This Clash is gonna be, well, I would say probably around the same hype as what we saw the first time where NASCAR went to Los Angeles. It's gonna be exciting because it's new. They're gonna play up the history factor at Bowman Gray, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be bumper cars and, well, a conveyor belt. These cars aren't meant to drive on a track this big. They are meant to whip around road courses, and they are meant to handle the high banks of super speedways. The short track package for this car is terrible. And in fact, NASCAR is still trying to figure out the short track package by introducing the option tires already for the Phoenix Spring Race. They can't get out of their own way when it comes to admitting that this Clash problem stems from they removed speed weeks. They've left Daytona. Instead of this being a multi-week celebration of the return of NASCAR, this sport has decided we're going to hunker down. We're going to double down, triple down on the fact that we don't need to go to Daytona to hype up the excitement for this sport. We can go anywhere. We can do this Clash anytime. And in fact, everybody's invited to go and take on this race. One, you lose how special this race is for these drivers. They don't really care about winning poles anymore simply because it just means you're starting up front and you got a good pit selection. Poles used to mean that you got to race in this exclusive club. It doesn't matter anymore. Everybody's invited. You're racing at a racetrack that does not suit the car in which you drive. Sorry, short tracks are not good for the next gen. Haven't been and won't be either, because I don't think they're bringing an option tire to Bowman Gray Stadium for this little bull ring thing they got going on. And finally, drivers to look out for, I really think there's only one. Every time NASCAR winds up going to a new track, a new circuit, there's one guy that literally always rises to the top. And that's Joey Logano. I think Joey's going to win this weekend. And I don't think it's really even going to be close. His driving style with this car, in terms of the learning curve of new tracks, suits him very well. And he was always good at the Clash back when it was at the Coliseum. The only difference now is they've literally picked up the track and moved it somewhere else. The configuration remains the same. The fact that we're just going to be in a conveyor belt filled with bumper cars is still the same. And I expect Joey Logano to really hype things up and win this sucker. I mean, not by laps and laps. You can't do it at a track this big. But watch a lot of people leave this race not quite as excited as when they went in. I don't think this is going to be some huge flop. I don't think people are going to rise up against this event. You got a lot of hometown NASCAR folks that love Bowman Gray, so this is going to be a huge hit for all of those old heads out there in the sport. But in terms of product on the racetrack, I'm going to be really disappointed if this thing turns into a snooze fest very quickly, or just an outright embarrassment of drivers wrecking each other, trying to get to the lead without any racecraft whatsoever. What do you think about NASCAR returning to Bowman Gray? I'm excited for it simply because there's history involved. I'm not necessarily excited for the racing that we're going to be seeing on Sunday. Well, that's pretty much it for our first show here on FasTrack Talk. My name is Zach, and I hope you've enjoyed what we've seen here. If you like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm going to try before every race of the NASCAR season just share with you my thoughts. I don't know if it'll be before the race or after the race where I can provide you recaps of what happened during the week. Still trying to sort that stuff out, and we'll just figure this thing out together. But my encouragement for you is to keep it fast, keep it clean, and I'll see you at the next green. I'll see you again here real soon. Take care, everybody.